This is the Radiolink T8X, a tiny little 8-channel transmitter that we're going to do a quick review on today. As a full disclosure, Radiolink have sent me this transmitter and a receiver for it for free for purpose of review. However, no money has changed hands, and all thoughts, feelings, and opinions on this transmitter are my own. Hello everybody, I am Ben from Team Panic. So let's start with the basics and do an overview. As mentioned, this is an 8-channel transmitter and it is fairly small and fairly compact. 4 of the channels are where you would expect them to be, on the thumbsticks at the front. It is definitely built for game style control with thumbs controlling the sticks, which is personally how I drive, so I find that quite comfortable. Then at the back here we have a wheel to do one of the other channels, 2 3-position switches right down the very bottom, and then a momentary as well. And each of these are their own channel. This transmitter also has a built-in LiPo battery that can be charged via a USB port down at the bottom. The final features here are some trim buttons for each of the sticks and a power on and off button. And because I know it's important to a lot of people out there, we should also talk about price. At time of recording, the T8S is on sale and is actually sitting around about the same price as the FlySky FSI6 and the FlySky FSI6S. These are the current kind of standard beginner model radio, at least here in Australia. I'm not really sure about the rest of the world, but these are kind of the standard use case for beginners getting into combat robots. And so sitting around the same price is good. However, once the sale drops, the T8S is going to be more expensive than the FlySky system. You'll also note that the T8S doesn't have a screen or any input for kind of menuing, any fail-safing or stick mixing, any of that kind of stuff, because it is all done via either a Bluetooth app or a program on your computer. Currently, apps exist for both iOS and Android. With the basics out of the way, it is time for me to kind of go over the good and the bad, the things I like and the things that I don't like about this transmitter and its receiver. So I have had this transmitter for a little while now. I was planning to get a review on it out a little bit earlier, but things have happened in my life and made that not quite so possible. You have actually seen this being used on this channel already in the Rumble from last month's meet. Smile here was being driven off the T8S, and I have actually been using the T8S or loaning the T8S out as part of my loan bot system. And this comes to the first thing that I really like about the T8S. I actually quite like the form factor of the T8S because it is fairly non-threatening for new people and beginners. It looks like a game controller and it feels a lot like a game controller. So where some people get intimidated by a FlySky with all of the buttons and switches and everything on that, the T8S, I've found a lot of people, especially people with no combat experience, are very, very happy to grab hold of this and just give it a go, which is really good to see. And getting new people into the sport, we need stuff like this that people are going to want to use. I also quite like the fact that it has a rechargeable battery in it. It means that you can literally just plug it into a power bank if you need to on the go. I always carry power banks when I'm traveling around and when I'm fighting robots because I'm always filming things, so I've always got to have power with me anyway. So this is quite helpful for that type of thing. With the FlySky and my other transmitters, I have to have specific batteries for those and make sure I carry that stuff with me. So the fact that this would literally just plug into the rest of the tech that I have with me when I go to a robot event is quite nice. The app control for mixing and things is a plus and a minus to me. So as we're in the plus category right now, we're going to just talk about the things that I quite liked about it, and then when we get into the things I didn't like, we will also talk about the app compatibility and the software stuff, because there is some stuff to talk about there as well. But I do actually quite like having an app to do that type of mixing and stuff with, especially as with a lot of this stuff, it is set and forget. It's a case of you go in, you do the mixing once, and then you use that mixing for all your robots. So at least personally, that is how I do a lot of my mixing. Like this FlySky FSI6, I mixed this like 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, and I basically haven't touched it since then. And just every single robot that I build, I make sure that they will all work with the same mixing setup, so I don't have to worry about flicking back and forth between modes and things, or changing mixing on the fly at events. It's all just set and forget. So doing that on the phone is really easy to do and not a huge deal because it's a one and done thing. The thing that I do like about it though is that on a phone, you can type a number in. On the FlySky FSI6, you need to set the mixing correctly, sit there and hold an up button or a down button until a number goes all the way up or all the way down to 100 or a minus 100. It takes a little while. Setting that up through the Bluetooth app is really quick because obviously you have a full keyboard on an app and you can just type a number in and it works quite well. Also, the mixing setup in here is very familiar off the FlySky FSI6. Without any manuals or anything, I was fairly quickly and easily able to get the mixing that I personally quite like set up on this receiver through using the app. And I think finally for this section, this radio did come to me with an 8-channel receiver, which is quite bulky, but I do like the fact that available online, you can get smaller 4-channel versions of these, which look to be kind of similar in size to the ones that I normally run with this FlySky FSI6 anyway. So it's good that they have that option because otherwise I almost couldn't recommend this for an ant weight stuff. I mean, this size receiver you can definitely get away with in beetle weights and up, but anything smaller than that, you probably want something a little bit smaller. So the fact that that does exist is a good thing. So now let's get into the things that I didn't like. And unfortunately, a lot of this comes down to software at this point in time. So as I mentioned in the things I like section, there is stuff I don't like about the apps side of things. So the first is the Bluetooth app itself. There's a couple of different things going on with the Bluetooth app. So first of all, on iOS, you can download it through the Apple Store. For Android, you have to download an APK file from their website and flick it across to your phone. As far as I could see from their website and marketing materials, there is no Play Store download for the Android app at this point in time, which I don't particularly like. That is not a very beginner-friendly way of adding an application to your phone, and it also means stuff like Google Play's auto updates for applications just doesn't exist. So unless they have built something into the app to do auto updates for you, you're going to have to keep checking back to their website to see if they have updated the software. This is the other thing here. The app is certainly easier than the PC software, but I am glad that the PC software exists because the other downside of doing an app is obsolescence. Phones especially go out of phase every couple of years. Like a phone's lifespan is 4 or 5 years at the most, and apps kind of follow the same trend. If a company isn't making sure that they are keeping up with and updating their app over and over and over again for new lines of phones and for new releases of phone software, then those apps can very, very quickly die off and be completely unusable. So as much as Radiolink may say, yes, we're absolutely going to keep the software updated, you never know what is going to happen in the future, and having an app alone would be no guarantee that you would be permanently able to update the settings on the radio all the way through into the future. The fact that there is a computer app as well is a good thing because Windows especially is really, really, really good at backwards compatibility. So any app you can run now, you should be able to run in 10 years' time on a Windows machine and still use the same software. But that is one thing to keep in mind, is that app compatibility may not exist forever. And when you don't have a screen on this and the app is the primary way in, that will limit options going further forward. You could end up stuck if you're only using through the app. Which you may be, because the computer software is interesting to set up as well. On Windows, you need to download and install drivers, which come in their own zip file, but not actually in a zip file, in a different form of zip file, which you may need to download and install software specifically to unzip. And when you do that, you get given two folders. One of them has the drivers installed, and the other one has just a rabbit warren of weirdly named files that goes to a place that doesn't have anything you need to install. So the file structure in this zip file is confusing at best. I mean, it's doable, but again, it's just one of those things that I wouldn't be asking a beginner to the sport to get in and deal with any of this type of stuff. And personally, I found even with that driver installed, I had to plug the controller into my computer and leave it for a good couple of minutes while Windows sat there and checked through drivers and a whole bunch of settings and stuff, and finally managed to get the controller set up. I also made the mistake of running the actual application itself before Windows had finished doing that, and in so doing, the application could not detect the radio at all until I basically had to shut the app down and restart it after Windows had finished putting the drivers in place. And none of this really has a manual. Again, the other thing here is that the app itself comes in its own zip file. As far as I can tell, it doesn't install anything. All it does is run itself from the folder that you unzip. So you need to unzip this into a decent place and not just in your downloads folder, which is what I did personally. On top of all of this, connecting to both of these things, the phone app and the computer app, are a little bit nuanced, I found. Personally, the manual says that you should just be able to power up the radio and get it to connect to a phone, no problems. But when I was doing that, I consistently could not find the transmitter in the Bluetooth menu on their app. And I found that I had to press and hold the power button while searching for the Bluetooth signal from the transmitter to actually get it to connect the first time. After that, it seemed to work on its own without having to press and hold the power button, so I don't know what happened the first time I tried the Android app. Something a little bit weird there, obviously. And that's kind of the general scheme of all of the software, is it could be good, but there are just little weird things here and there that make it not very easy or intuitive to use. Again, with the Windows application, I found that you plug everything in, you plug the controller in, the Windows application pops up telling you that it has found the COM port that your controller is on, and you press open and it doesn't connect to the controller immediately. You need to press and hold the power button to turn the controller on before the link to the computer will actually work. Once you have turned the controller itself on, then the screen will light up and show you all the stick position, show you what the mixing stuff is, show you the failsafe setup, all of that kind of stuff will actually work. But nowhere that I could find does it mention that the controller itself needs to be powered on while connected through USB. And again, the app itself shows you the COM port that the controller is connected to while the controller is off, which kind of, again, leads to this little bit of confusion and just this unintuitiveness of the software working. I'm actually a little bit sad about this, because this controller, as it currently stands, I think could be a killer for getting new people into the sport and getting people comfortable with fighting robots. And the size and form factor and inbuilt battery and things mean that this is perfect for taking and fighting robots on the move. I know, especially in America, where there are fights spread here, there, and everywhere, flying with robots is a big thing. And flying with a transmitter like this is far, far easier than flying with an FS-I6 here. But unfortunately, at this point in time, I feel like the software settings and the hoops you have to jump through to get all the software working are holding this transmitter back. These things should be fixable, could be fixable, I don't know. It would take Radiolink themselves to get in and do a bit of work making all of their software easier to use, and making things easy to use sometimes isn't that easy to do. So I don't know exactly how much work would be involved in that. But if they could pull that stuff off, if they could have their app on the Play Store and not have to have you install it through a file, if their software for Windows was an installable that installed drivers on its own and also gave a pop-up telling you that you need to turn the controller on to actually be able to connect it, that type of stuff would go a very long way to making me actually recommend this as a beginner-friendly, very easy to use radio. But as it currently stands, it's just not quite there. So I think in closing, I want to like this radio. I really, really do. And I think now that I have everything set up, I will like using this radio and like letting other people use this radio. But it's just those small things in the software and in the setup that are quality of life things that would make life so much better that really hold me back from really saying that you should go out and get a T8S. Yeah, I think that's where I stand on it. I want to like it, but I don't quite. Not yet. And hopefully Radiolink can get out there and sort out their software, get some of their software working a little bit better and a little bit easier. And then I think we'd have a really, really good radio on our hands. Anyway, I think that is all I'm going to say on this particular review. I hope you've enjoyed that one, and I will see you in the next video.